Welcome to Monday, February 29th, Leap Day of Special Board of Education meeting for the East China School District. We'll start with a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance, please. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is items of interest, recognition, and inquiry. First of all, Board of Education members, anything to bring forth?
I'll just really quickly congratulate the St. Clair and Marine City teams that participated in mock trial this past weekend. St. Clair Blue was first place in the county, and a lot of individual awards from both the St. Clair team and the Marine City team. So good job to the coaches and the participants.
Good luck to the girls' basketball teams this week. I think it's districts.
Yeah.
This week.
They're both playing tonight. St. Clair and Marine City both are playing.
And then the St. Clair cheerleaders, I believe, are going on to regionals.
Great.
That's all.
Great things. Dr. Skulka.
President Bewer, Board of Education members, and the East China staff and community, I wanted to take this opportunity to say, before we get to tonight's comments, presentation, and discussions, that I misunderstood the intent of how the committee wanted to present the information and its recommendations at the regular meeting held last Monday night. I should have verified how the material was to be presented with the chair of that committee and take responsibility for the manner in which the meeting transpired. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next item, recognition of persons wishing to address the board. I will make an unusual option. If you filled out one of the cards previous and you want to wait until after our presentation to ask your question, you're more than welcome to. I'll call off your name now. If you want to speak now, fantastic. If you want to wait until after the presentation is done, we'll allow that as well. So I'm going to call names. Just if you want to speak now, just please come up.
There's Glenn.
Dennis Delore.
Thanks again for hearing me. I want to again apologize for an email I sent earlier. It was out of character for myself, but at the same time, you got to understand how close this hits to home. We did choose our home based on location. And Ms. Frank, you are a real estate agent, correct? Mm-hmm. What's one of the first questions that a young family coming in asks when they're going to buy a home? Is number one, what school district and what schools? We chose where we live because of Pine River Elementary. Changing these boundaries pushes us to Palms, which is actually twice as far away. I drove it the other day. You can't guarantee me that school choice is going to be open, and I still oppose it today. I appreciate your time again. Thanks.
Thank you. Craig Yope.
Good evening, Craig Yope, 1313 Mayor. I wanted to start this with an apology to you. I came in here back in October, and I pretty much tore you up, read you the riot act as how I felt about the bond issue. But I know now, having seen how things have operated in the last 6 months or whatever, that my anger at that time was directed at the wrong source, and you got the brunt of it, but you shouldn't have. going on from there, I also wanted to make an observation, and I wanted to start this with a question. And it's kind of rhetorical, but it's why is this even a district? It's clear to me now, watching over the last, 5-6 months, that this is really two districts operating independently. The people don't really seem to want to be working with each other. The whole point of consolidation is to streamline, get rid of certain things, get it down to, a clean system. And with the exception of a few things like the PAC or the football stadium, it doesn't seem like there's much of that going on in this district. That the people of St. Clair or Marine City, they want to be a Saint or a Mariner, and it just goes on, and this is what happens. And so, watching this going on, and it really hit me last week when people were talking about these borders. And to me, my original thought when I came in here and I told you how I felt about the bond, and I still don't like it. I still don't like what is going on, but the point is now it dawns on me that these are things that are going on because the people still want what they want. They want their little schools over here, over there, and they truly don't want to be part of a consolidated district. So why is this district a consolidated district? So it goes back to what you're going to talk about tonight. If this was, a consolidated district, a true consolidated district, a consolidated middle school and a consolidated high school, this border issue wouldn't be going on because it wouldn't matter. They would be all going to the same place once they got out of this elementary school. And so this is, you're going to have this discussion, and this is going to be great for these people because it doesn't look like it's going to change. But, you're going to continue to keep having these conversations, and you're going to continue fighting with this as long as you don't consolidate, because that's really that's the whole point. And as long as you stay with these two little districts going on here, you're going to constantly be having these people showing up and doing this. And so, I'm at this point, and I see that it isn't going to happen. I've been here 12 years, 13 years or whatever, and, tradition. I guess that's what it is, and that's what these people want. And so enjoy yourself. I've had enough of it, and I'm done with it. Thank you.
Eric Grunenveld.
Dr. Skalka, members of the board, thank you for allowing people to speak. I'm going to continue back to a recurring theme about frustrations. I'm, to start with, frustrated between the Marine City St. Clair thing. It doesn't really matter when it comes to it. We should all have one good school district. It shouldn't matter Marine City St. Clair. At the same time, it's frustrating, as we've said, when we buy houses and we have plans, we have jobs, we have schools that we go to where we plan for our children to go there. We plan our lives to be involved with extracurricular activities. My wife plans her job to go to school, to help kids read, to do all these wonderful things. If we change schools, this is going to be significantly harder for people that have careers, that have two parents that both have careers. These are difficult transitions to make. It makes for difficult frustrations. School board members talked last time about how difficult of a transition it was to go from Pine River to middle school in Marine City because of the transition. It would be just as difficult to take these children that are second grade, third grade, fourth grade and move them to Marine City. We're doing the same thing as what we're talking about is frustrating. It's frustrating that there's children that are from downtown St. Clair that go to Marine or to Pine River School of Choice, but because I live in the country, I'm going to get shifted because that school of choice is going to be grandfathered in because they have a child in middle school, but I don't have a child in middle school, so I'm not grandfathered in. I feel like if you allow everybody to be grandfathered in, this would make the transition a lot less frustrating for people. People already have plans. They have children in these schools. If we're not closing a school, we already have room for these children in these schools. If we're closing a school, I'm not sure why we're deciding to redraw boundaries this year, because we're going to be in the same predicament next year if we're closing a school. If we're going to pass a millage and not close a school, that's a wonderful thing. Then let's have some, I don't even know what we could pass as a school board and say, you know what, if we're going to pass this millage, this is going to be a wonderful thing for the district. We're going to have X amount of money extra. We're not going to need to close a school. We've all heard these rumors. Then let's say, you know what, pass the millage. We're not going to close a school. And I'm guessing the public's going to be significantly more behind the millage than if we're redistricting and we're forcing people to go to schools without it. At this point, it's just, we're going to redistrict. Maybe you'll have room for your child. Maybe you won't, but still vote for the millage because we don't want to close a school. Well, if I get redistricted and I can't do school of choice, yes, I want my child to go to a great school. Yes, I want to pass the millage, but it's also frustrating for me because I'm not getting to choose where my child gets to go to school. You're telling me where my child goes to school. So it's frustrating. Nobody should be put in a situation where their child has to go to this school, has to go to that school. It shouldn't be Marine City. It shouldn't be St. Clair. It should be East China. It should be all together. And I understand its numbers. I understand that kindergarten has to make sense. I understand we can't have 35 kids in a kindergarten classroom in one school and 12 kids in a kindergarten classroom in another school. And I understand that you want to keep siblings together. This all makes sense. But we have room for these kids that are already there. They're already there. We already have enough room for them. Why are we not grandfathering everybody? Why are we only grandfathering the kids that have middle schoolers and high schoolers? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Annie Gotke?
Good evening. My name is Amy Gedke. My husband and I, with our 2 children, live at 4227 Starville, which is the dead end off of Putty Gut. A map will show you that Starville goes through to Lindsay, but it doesn't. The buses don't come down our road. It's going to be a very long drive for children who have to go from our road and their parents sit on the corner and wait for them to go to Palms. On our little road alone, we have 4 kids that are 6th through 12th grade and 8 that are 5th grade and under. I'd like to thank the Boundary Committee for the time that they put into trying to find a solution to this problem. It was obviously created many years ago. When our son started school 9 years ago, I was given the wrong information about which side of the district we were to attend. This issue goes back further than that. I understand that there's a need for corrections within the district. I request that the board makes a decision and actually sticks with it. It isn't fair to put our children through this turmoil every year. Something I don't understand is why, a few days prior to the February 22nd meeting, a board member posted on Facebook the proposed boundary map along with the agenda for the board meeting. At the board meeting, the board member requested to review the information that the committee put together. Shouldn't board members be given the information to review prior to these meetings? Shouldn't board members have done the necessary research prior to the meeting? The agenda was made public. It wasn't a secret. Parents were at this meeting looking for answers, but came away with nothing more than frustration. Now we are having a special meeting, adding unnecessary pressure to everyone involved to make a decision prior to kindergarten roundup. This seems to be an ongoing problem with this board. Aside from not sticking to a decision, it seems you're not working together to the benefit of the East China School District. It's obvious the board members have their own personal agendas and not the children's best interest in mind. Board members are obviously loyal to their side of the district, when it seems to me they should be loyal to East China School District as a whole. The committee was asked to come up with a solution, and there's no easy solution that will make everyone happy. But this practice of making a decision and then going against it does not work for anyone, especially our children. For our family coming into this district, it was not a St. Clair versus Marine City thing. Yes, our kids are very proud to be Saints, but easily could have become Mariners 9 years ago. For our children, it's about taking comfort in what you've established. It's about the teachers that know you by name, even if you weren't in their classroom. It's about the friendships that develop since kindergarten, and the traditions that are carried on, and the pride that has been taught to them. It was brought up that some kids have a hard time adjusting to middle school when they come from a split school like Pine River. I'm sure that's very true. In our house, it didn't work that way. My son had a great time playing a 7th grade football against Marine City, and he thought it was great to play against his former classmates and Mr. Griffin from Pine River. The transition to middle school was great, probably because of the lessons taught to our kids by Ms. Slemmer and the entire staff at Pine River. Pine River has helped us build a strong foundation for our kids to grow from. At the meeting on February 22nd, board members stated the school choice will still be available. But will in-district school choice still be available? There is a difference. Will in-district school choice be offered at every level? The proposal states that children enrolled in 6 through 12 and their siblings are grandfathered in. Is this board willing to put this in writing to these children? Will adjusting these boundaries be enough to fix the problem, or will the board be closing a school in the future? Will this be the final adjustment? I'm sure you won't be able to answer any of my questions because you don't know any numbers. If history has taught us anything about this board, it is that these issues will be revisited again next year and probably the following year, and putting our children through turmoil. This board needs to work together to make the tough decision and see it completely through.
Natalie Zehammer.
Thank you for, I can't believe I got to follow that. I live at 7496 Putty Gut, and we're currently on the north side of Putty Gut Road. And I came here last week trying to gather facts because of obviously rumors and different things that were going on about the redistricting. And coming here, I felt more frustrated than I came in because still I don't feel that there was adequate information given of why the boundary changes are needed now. There was Mrs. Frank and Alan, they were kind of arguing back and forth about the impact of a child that has to do a split school. And I feel that that's a personal opinion, and that's a personal family decision, and that decision should be left with the families, because how can one person say that this change needs to be made because my kids experienced this? That is not across the board. You have a community in upheaval over opinions, and that was the only thing that we were given last week was opinions. We weren't given any facts, any numbers, and so I just feel that the other part that is kind of a shady area is that when we moved into our home, purchased our home 10 years ago, we were told we were Pine River and St. Clair High School, which is one of the reasons why we did make that purchasing decision. And according to the proposal, you guys are talking about streamlining, you know, the elementary schools. However, the proposal clearly stated that, as I understand, based on what I was told by the district 10 years ago, that if you're on the north side of Putty Gut, you would attend St. Clair High School. The proposal said that anyone on the border road, which is Putty Gut and south, would now all be St. Clair. So it's more than just the elementary in that Bell River area. And so that is a little bit confusing to us as well. I know the proposal is to say that their people are grandfathered in if they are currently in 6th to 12th grade, and so are their siblings, but again, that's just a proposal, and so many things have changed, which is another area of frustration for a lot of parents because we just are in a state of not knowing, and many people you saw were here last week trying to get information, but the only thing that we were given were opinions, and I just don't feel that that's enough to warrant a boundary change, especially if there's no school closings, and that this may have to be addressed again in the future.
Bill Schunk. Okay. All right, we'll move on to the Boundary School of Choice Committee update. Dr. Diane Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Beaver, members of the Board of Education, Dr. Skalka. I know that you received information that I'm going to just highlight tonight, and all of that information was also in the Times-Herald. The state has a school of choice. There's school of choice within the county, and we also have in-district school of choice. There are different guidelines for each of those things. When Washington closed, their fifth graders traditionally had gone to Marine City Middle and Marine City High School. The boundary sent some former Washington students to Pine, ultimately, and it was the district's intention, you can see on the map if you look, please, it was the district's intention that they would still attend Marine City Middle and Marine City High School. Friendships were developed, and that's part of, and if I could digress with a personal opinion, because Mr. Mayor, I think, talked about that. When I was in actually when I was in elementary school in Detroit, I was in a K-8 building. My mother and some of her friends in our neighborhood decided that some of us should go to what was then junior high school, today is middle school, for the 7th grade. My mother decided that the junior high school that I was supposed to go to, because of the boundary, so to speak, that was in Detroit, was not good enough for me. So she sent me to another one. How she worked this out, I have no idea, any more than I know how she got me into school when I was 4 years old. But as a 7th grader, 11 years old, I got on a city bus and rode for 45 minutes to a junior high school where I knew no one. My friends either stayed at the K-8 and graduated from the 8th grade, or the ones that went to junior high went to the other junior high school that was in the area. When I finished junior high, I made some friends there. I'm a relatively outgoing person and always have been. The friends I made there went to a different high school than I went to. So now I went back to a high school where many of the K-8 students that I had been with were, but they had formed friendships. So I went through the same thing again. So as we looked at this as a committee, that was something that was in a way kind of painful to me and also very meaningful, because we want to have kids stay together. Yes, we did talk about having children who were grandfathered and who had siblings. Before Washington closed, school of choice had been in place, but as students from what we're calling the pocket were existing at Pine River, the school of choice rule was revised and established, allowing a choice of middle schools, St. Clair or Marine City Middle School. Washington closed due to declining enrollment, which is no surprise to you. And as the district continues to decline, there are going to be changes. There are always going to be changes as enrollment declines, as we get fewer kids, people are leaving the state, we're an aging population. We don't like change. The only person who welcomes change is a wet baby. The rest of us don't want to change. It's difficult. Change is difficult. So the Boundary Committee looked at all of the information that we had available. We met for the first time on January 14th. We were not behind closed doors. The only time the door was closed was when there was noise in the hallway. No one was told they couldn't be at the meeting, to my knowledge. At least I didn't tell anybody that, and I don't know anyone who did. Pardon me?
Why were you informed of the meeting? Especially the people who live in this effect,
I don't know.
area they affect.
I don't know.
We should have been on the committee to help.
I'll be more than happy to help that.
Committee membership represented people who live in the areas that are affected.
No, they did not.
Well, yes, they did.
We have the committee's names, and they're not
Jim?
in our area. They don't live on the street.
This yelling from the audience in the middle.
We have representatives on the committee, a community member who lives in the, quote, pocket, an administrator, a teacher, 2 board members, and parents. And some of them were not able to be here tonight. As a committee, we found that some of those school of choice guidelines were outdated for a variety of reasons, And so we looked at developing a recommendation for elementary and secondary boundaries that would make for smoother transitions. It was very important to us that we not split families. We made exceptions, or are suggesting exceptions for students who are currently enrolled in 6 through 12, attending outside these boundaries to remain in the current school along with any elementary-aged siblings. All have the option to apply in-district school of choice consistent with these guidelines. There are 102 current K-5 students. Dr. Skalka, you may want to speak to that.
Sure.
We looked at numbers as they are reported to the state of Michigan.
There's 102 students who are currently K-4 students, so they would be still with us in the elementaries next year. 102 K-4 in this impacted area here. But because of the grandfathering, 52 students is the number that are impacted, and depending on how the board chooses to act tonight, if the recommendation is accepted, we'll begin communicating with the parents of those 52 students.
Okay, so the other 50, and there's the data up there, the other 50 either have siblings in middle school or high school, or are enrolled in a special program that's only offered in a certain location. I'd like to share with you, and I have permission to do that, a letter that came from a parent to the board, but for the benefit of the people in the audience. This individual said, and again, we have permission to share this letter with you. I watched the recent board meeting yesterday. This was the special meeting of the 22nd. As a parent of a middle school and a high school student in Marine City, who both attended Pine River Elementary due to where we reside on North Bell River Road in East China, I'd like to share my thoughts. I can tell you firsthand that the transition from elementary school to middle school would have been a lot easier on my children if they would have moved into middle school with their friends. When my daughter went to Marine City Middle School, there were just a handful of students from Pine River who went to Marine City Middle School, none of whom were her friends. My daughter is far from shy, and is outgoing. However, I could not imagine the impact this could have on a child who is shy and or not outgoing. I've always thought the boundaries should be made so that students attend middle school and high school with the same students they attend elementary school with. I had grown up on Vista Bell Court. We too attended Pine River and then went on to Marine City Middle School. It seemed back then that the number of students going to Marine City Middle School and St. Clair Middle School was more of a 50-50 split. We did not have school of choice back then. I have often wondered if people do school of choice to St. Clair Middle School so they do not have to leave their friends behind who attended Pine River, and they had attended with them since kindergarten. I would also like to share with you that I had contacted Dr. Skalka the week before this board meeting for some clarification on this situation because there was a very heated debate about what was going to occur at the meeting. The rumor was the board was moving the boundaries and everyone south of St. Clair High School, St. Clair Highway would be forced to attend Marine City Middle School, Marine City High School. Dr. Skalka clarified that this was not accurate and told me I could share his response to help clarify the rumor. I then shared his response on Facebook. The reason I'm sharing this with you is because there are some very nasty things being said about Marine City High School and threats by St. Clair Middle School parents to pull students before they allow them to attend Marine City High School. I found that people forget we are one school district. There is no need to bash the different schools. With that being said, I find it disheartening to hear a board member state cook the books to make Marine City numbers look bigger and St. Clair numbers smaller. I think statements like that just fuel animosity between both ends of the district. In closing, I definitely think changing the boundaries would be in the best interest of the students that find themselves with the same boundary issues as my household. Thank you for your time, Renee Rogers. Okay. Rogers or East China?
They live in the pocket.
Oh, this is from Jeannie. Dear board members, I would like to address the issue of redistricting. It seems that a lot of thought has been given to how doing the redistricting will affect those who will be moved to a Marine City Elementary School. You need to give your consideration to what has been happening to some students for 2 years now because of declining enrollment. The main reason why the kids in the disputed areas were sent to a St. Clair Elementary School in the first place was because there was not room at Bell River when Washington Elementary closed. That situation has changed. Now there is space available at Bell. Moving these students to a building where the relationships that they build will continue on into middle school and high school is the right thing to do. I have learned that a board member has concerns because he feels that having students from the pocket has made Pine River the success that it is. Bell River has experienced its own successes. I would love to expound, but I digress. Any student would be fortunate to attend Bell. I don't need to mention many of the other reasons that some people, many of whom don't even have kids in school anymore, have given for not wanting these boundary changes. In our ever-changing world, people still fear change, especially adults. Children are resilient. Once they know what their new normal is, they go with it. There is not one elementary school in this district that is better than the next. We have outstanding teachers, administrators, and parent volunteers at all of them. As educators, administrators, board members, and parents, these decisions we are making are supposed to be child-centered. Any child that gets to attend Bell River, a full Title I building, would benefit from the expertise of teachers who have been trained to take kids where they are at and accelerate and challenge them. Bell River currently has a split path classroom which has half fourth graders and half fifth graders. I ask, is that what's best for kids? Redistricting may very well alleviate the need for this arrangement. What about the kids that are impacted by this? Thinking along these lines is thinking about the greater good of our district's children, not just keeping some people happy by not changing the current arrangement. There have been a few families that have already made the change you are considering because they acknowledge that building the lasting relationships far outweighs doing something to keep status quo. The same worry on a much larger scale took place when Washington Elementary closed and students had to be moved. The whole process was very smooth, and almost immediately all of the students were at home with being at their new building. My classroom had about 10 students that came from Washington that year. By the second week of school, I couldn't have told you who was new and who had always been there. This decision needs to be based on what is best for the whole district, not just a few. I teach my fourth graders about the core democratic values of common good and diversity. It breaks my heart to hear some of the things that I hear from adults in the community that are not considering these basic values when talking about this change. I hope that as board members, you will have the interests of all of the students in our district in mind when you vote on this decision. Signed, Jeannie Westerhoff. I think that's it. Anybody have anything else? Any
We're
questions?
going to open up to questions and discussions to the board. Mr. Ritchley?
If I may, and I say this with all due respect, I want to say that, first of all, I did not say anything about a school being better than the other or worse than the other. But the thing that I think, because I could read probably 10 times the amount of emails on the other side of the issue too, but I'm not going to waste time with that because, again, I think we got to focus on facts rather than opinions. And I didn't hear one fact in either one of those emails. It was all opinion. So I would like to look at the costs of transportation. I would like to look at the number of students impacted, not just, and I don't like to refer to it as the pocket. I don't think that that's fair. I mean, these people, I mean, they're students, so I mean, it's not a pocket. But I think also communication is an issue as well. I did not know that there was a committee meeting on the 14th. I mean, I don't know of anybody else that knew of that meeting besides people that were involved in the committee. Also, community members, it was said that all of the committee members were in the area that's affected.
That was not said that way.
That was said.
No, I did not say all. I said there was representation on the committee from people in the affected area.
How many? Because I counted 2,
No one
I believe.
has no St. Clair.
Don't yell out.
Okay.
It's on Marine City.
Yelling needs to
Right.
stop.
Please.
But anyway, I agree, you know, about the splitting families part. You know, if there was a compromise, you know, we wanted to keep the Marine City side on the Marine City side and St. Clair side on the St. Clair side. If that's something worth looking into, I mean, I don't know, but I think that there, and again, we have not had any information. I mean, there's going to be extra added costs because of this decision, and I would like to see what those are in regard to transportation, and none of these numbers have been shown, so I don't believe there's enough information in order to make a decision at this point. But that's just my view.
Okay.
I've got a question.
Yes.
It's on clarification. When we name a road as a boundary, is the road the center line and then people on one side of the road? On the north side go north and the
I
south
asked that
side go
question
south?
specifically of transportation, and they said, no, it's not the center line, it is the road.
It is the road.
It is the road.
Okay.
Tell him not to yell.
We're not,
I-
discussion? Yes.
That was, again, that was what was
Transportation.
transportation relayed to me.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions for me on behalf of the committee that I chaired?
I want to go not to the boundaries, but looking at the schools of choice language. On the page, I think it's the next to the last, you probably don't have that, do you, Dee?
I may not, no.
It's the next to the last page where it talks about, below the bullet, where you crossed out, or the committee has crossed out the number going to secondary and the number of kids that can go to elementary.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks. The new language for the secondary says, requests will be considered unless approval would require the opening of new teaching sections, which is fine. I believe that same language should hold or be included under elementary also. And I guess my question is with the, I know there's at least 3 people that were on the committee. There's 4 here. Or 5, okay. I would like to see that same language then be added to elementary. Requests will be considered unless approval would require the opening of new teaching sections. I would like that language to be under elementary as
Yeah,
well.
I thought we did that, Pat. If we didn't, that correction should be made,
Okay,
because we did talk about that.
okay. I think it just needs to be, you know, the same, both secondary and
I agree,
elementary and
absolutely, and I
secondary.
don't think anyone on the committee would
Okay.
say anything other than that, because we did discuss it.
All right. I'd like to make a motion then that, per the committee
We're still in discussion, though.
We're still in discussion.
Okay. Well,
So people, when they look at the map, could we got emails, I know you all got them about, you know, the boundary being a half mile from city limits, from St. Clair city limits. Could you go down and explain, you know, we're, right above it, where the streets are now, what that boundary is?
What this boundary is?
Yep, no, down, yep, right there.
I don't know the road's name, I'm sorry.
Is that degree? I would like them to know how
Sure.
far down, instead of how, you know, because we're being accused of,
Look at it, it's obvious.
yeah.
The boundaries are.
Well, this is, if this is Bell, then this is the Chartier.
Chartier.
Chartier. And the one above Chartier.
Plank.
Plank.
Okay, thank you.
So that's gotta be Degursey.
that's
That's the Guernsey.
Which is
Marine,
south of Marine City Highway.
Correct.
Oh, yes.
so that is
Absolutely.
in Marine City limits, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Anything else? Finally, I'd like to again thank the committee for the time and effort that they put into working together on this suggestion and recommendation. And thank you to the board.
Well, thank you.
Dr. Shaw.
Dr. Shaw. Yes.
I would like to make a motion to postpone the committee recommendation of changes in school boundaries, associated clarifications, and school of choice practices as presented until at least the March regular Board of Education meeting, which I believe is the 21st, and more factual information becomes available to the board and public. And I know, I know, in order to have discussion, I would like to have a second, just so that I can discuss why.
Well, without a second, it'll die. Any,
Is there a second? None?
okay.
Seconded, none?
Motion dies.
Motion dies. Any other adaptations? You know, we have an amendment that we want to
Right.
put
Right.
into the, and I'll put that into the motion.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I would like to make the motion that per the committee recommendation, the board approves the board approves the changes in school boundaries, associated clarifications, and schools of choice practices as presented, amended, and reviewed.
Taking the amendment that we are speaking about is making the language exactly the same between elementary and secondary based on the committee's findings and requests and knowledge that they wanted that to read the same dialogue.
Second. Or did we
The
already have a
motion?
second? Second on the motion.
I need the second on the motion, yes.
Glenn, second?
Glenn did. Glenn seconded.
Yes.
Okay.
All those in favor
Oh,
say?
no, I have discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I wrote a statement, so President Buer, Dr. Skalka, and fellow members of the board. As you know, I have reservations about the decision before us this evening. There are many reasons why, but most importantly, I believe there has not been enough information presented to the board in time for this meeting to make an informed decision. At the very least, it is our responsibility as members of this board to make informed decisions. Knowing the result of these decisions will directly impact the education of children in the district. We have received very little information to make a decision tonight, which is why I firmly believe we need to do more homework before making a final decision that could affect many students for years to come. According to Dr. Skalka last Monday, it was discussed to create a committee on the issue of redistricting. I do not and did not recall these discussions. After reviewing the meeting minutes from previous meetings, which serve as legal documentation of what has transpired at a meeting, there was no mention of a formation of a committee on the issue of boundary lines. The only documentation I could find was from the December 14th regular meeting, where there was a motion by Jeannie Frank and supported by Amy Murphy, which passed by a 6-to-1 vote, and it reads, motion by Jeannie Frank, supported by Amy Murphy, to direct administration to continue to provide the board with information regarding a redistricting plan that allows for a more balanced distribution of students throughout the district. Nothing about a committee. And through the other meeting minutes from November and December, nothing about a committee. That motion was generalized and had no specifics or details. As you can plainly see, there was no motion to form a committee. So my questions are, who made the decision to form the committee on boundary changes? What were the goals and stated purposes of this committee? Who knew about the formation of this committee, and how were the members of this committee chosen? Who made the decision to keep these meetings secret from the public and behind closed doors? The board received no updates or reports or information from this committee, even after the recommendation came from this committee, even tonight. I know I didn't, and anyone other than Jeannie Frank or Todd Distelrath has, that has before it, was at the public meeting last Monday. That's a violation of the Open Meetings Act, which I will give you the benefit of the doubt and say that didn't happen, but that's what I assume. I think this sets a dangerous precedent on how the board operates, and it violates the public trust. I understand that some people do not understand the Open Meetings Act or the purpose of transparency, but it's about trust. I do thank the members of this committee for their work, and I want to make clear that to the public, that it's not their fault these meetings were held in secret. That was our responsibility and a lack of leadership on the part of the school board. Now, on specific issues that I think need to be addressed, I want to reference a few emails from 2 years ago that pertain to this situation. The first is from Jeannie Frank, where it says, I'm 100% in favor of redrawing the boundary lines and implementing all of the changes this fall. This is back in March of 2014. I do not want to postpone any of this. It is going to make the budget worse, put us closer to dipping below the board policy of a 10% fund balance, potentially becoming a deficit district, and frankly, I do not care to be, and I'm not going to say the word since there might be children watching this at home, to be blanked at once a month for the next year until we end up doing the inevitable anyway. The last line that I think is important, it says we have an excellent opportunity here to bring back balance into the district. It has nothing to do with the kids being separated. I believe that's exactly the line that has to do with. Then the last email I'm going to read here was from Dr. Skalka. And it says, and I agree with you, Dr. Skalka, it says, I wouldn't even bother discussing redistricting if we were going to let in-district parents continue to cross the lines drawn. It defeats the purpose. Interestingly, it also defeats the purpose of low class sizes. Excuse me for a moment. Why are parents currently allowed the in-district choice option? Because there is room in the classes between the original number of students scheduled into that class and the contract maximum number. This was in response to an email from a concerned parent 2 years ago. Mr. Bewer then responded, thank you for your insight on the topic, which makes sense not to put the cart before the horse, Jim Bewer. Now, another email from the school closure committee at the time, where they said, under redistricting, every redistricting option, changing boundary lines added sections or FTEs to the district, cannot adjust lines without adding teachers, which equals more money. And then I sent an email to Dr. Skalka on August 20th of last year, and I said, I heard there were discussions on redistricting at this meeting. I hope there will be no action items that Monday. And then Dr. Skalka responded, I know of no discussions of redistricting related to the board meeting and will not be presenting any information related to the topic at that meeting.
Well, that was in August of 2015.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. But there was...
August of 2015.
Correct. But anyway, From 2 years ago to today, there are contradicting accounts on what the actual cause and effect of this decision will be. There has been a consistent push from a couple of people on this board to move boundary lines further north. We hear that it is in the best interests of the children. That may be the case, but I see no evidence to support that statement. In fact, every piece of evidence that I've been able to dig up and find shows exactly the opposite. This leads me to believe that, again, this is not about the best interests of the children. It's all about politics and personal agendas. It's about how many children can we push south to make Marine City numbers look better. The message has changed from we want to bring balance into the district 2 years ago to now, where children that get separated in their middle school transition. That's the narrative today. This leads me to believe that the other side thought this would be a better argument to sell to parents and the public. We must not forget that this is not the Marine City or St. Clair School District. This is and always will be the East China School District. We decided in December not to close an elementary school, and the whole purpose of the redistricting idea, I thought, was to accommodate that decision. There are many questions that need to be answered before this decision is made. What will this decision cost the district financially? Will the students that are grandfathered in the selected areas be provided transportation? Dr. Skalka has indicated that the answer to that question is yes. If so, that would double up bus runs in the area, in effect vastly increasing the cost. So how much of an increase are we looking at? How long are students going to be on the bus? Again, another question not answered, and if it is less than an hour, the transportation costs will increase. And if it is more than an hour, I believe that's far too long for a child to be on a bus to and from school. If there is a closure of Eddy Elementary, will these same students have to move schools again? Without the actual numbers in front of us, we do not have the information to have definitive answers for the board or the public for that matter. Exactly how many students will be affected, which we received part of that tonight. If we are to close Eddy Elementary for the 2016-17 or 17-18 school year, will the students that are currently slated to be grandfathered under the committee proposals still have the capacity to stay in their school of choice? This will defeat the purpose of what the committee chairperson, Dr. Shaw, said was the goal of this committee, to keep students and their families together. Lastly, I do not understand how we can make this decision, a decision of this magnitude, with a lack of basic information and answers to the most basic of questions. Thank you for your consideration, but there's one more thing that I have to, somebody brought this up this evening and I can't remember who it was, but they talked about Eddy Elementary, if the millage passed, it would stay open. I don't believe that's true. I think that the only reason why it's being kept open is so that people won't be mad and will vote for the thing, and so that's all I have to say.
I was the one that made the motion in December to hold off on closing.
No, not according to these
No,
minutes.
to hold off on closing, yes.
Oh, yes, the
Yes.
holding off on closing.
Closing
Yes.
out.
Right.
The
Yes,
redistricting
correct.
plan, no.
At that same time, Trustee Richley, at that same time, I asked how we would like to proceed with further investigating potential boundary changes. That was when a discussion of a committee was brought up, and at that very meeting, I asked Secretary Frank and Trustee Distelrath if they would serve on that committee, and they both agreed during that school board meeting to do that. Now, if that didn't make the minutes, I understand, but that is what transpired because we asked them that night if they would participate.
I don't recall that, and that could be true, but the only thing that is legally binding are the minutes.
That's fine.
And a vote of the board was taken on this specific issue, and that should have been included in that motion and that's why I voted
No.
against that motion, because it wasn't specific enough, and that's
No.
why we're here today and all confused, but.
No, when the board takes action as it did, it took action to provide me with direction to carry out that action. That direction to carry out that action was to form that committee, which was stated that night, in which we assembled the 2 board members on that committee that night. And I'm going to use the reference of 2 board members because at no time did more than 3 board members ever come together. And so to allege, even to hint at any violation of an Open Meetings Act is completely off base, because at no time, again, was there ever more than even two, and you need to have more than three to have a quorum.
But if you're having discussions and taking straw polls of different members through email or that kind of thing, that
And
is,
I'm unaware of any of that going on.
well, so am I, but I'm just saying.
Well, you just said, so
no,
am I.
but-
So you
no,
throw out an allegation,
No,
all right, you throw out an allegation, then you turn right around and say, my allegation obviously isn't accurate.
well, no, the point is, I'm totally in the dark, unlike it seems like everybody else seems to be.
Okay.
There were 7 of us that sitting at that meeting to form that committee, and requested Mrs. Frank and Mr. Disselrath to serve as members of that committee. And they graciously accepted, and that's when the committee, we directed Dr. Skulk to form that committee.
That should have been in the minutes, but also why, again, the reason I think that, or the thing that we should have done is we should have had parents involved in those discussions. We should have had.
There
should-
were parents on that
Again.
committee.
Not in the area affected.
Yes, there
Yes,
was.
there were.
Well, there were 2 parents,
No.
yes,
Of the,
2 parents in the area that's affected.
well, okay, so you can't on one hand say there were no parents in the affected area, and
Well-
then in the very next sentence say that there were 2 parents in the
But
area
how are
affected.
the members
All
of this
I'm
committee
saying-
chosen? I think it's a fair question.
It is a fair question. I asked both Secretary Frank, Trustee Distelrath, and Chris Ming, who's an administrator in the district and a parent who lives in the affected area, to suggest to me 2 to 3 names from both the north, south, and affected areas. And everyone that we in turn reached out to support and to be on the committee, sans Dr. Shaw, was a parent in the district, including the 2 board members. Now, we sought balance between north and south. We sought balance in terms of affected and not affected. And we made sure, again, that of the members, all but 1 currently have students attending schools in the district.
That's how the committee was formed.
That's right.
I just don't, what was the purpose and goal of the committee? Did they come up with something?
Purpose and goal was to review school of choice practices and the boundary lines, the very recommendations that they have provided this board,
Which are?
which are what we've seen here tonight and which you received and posted 2 or 3 days before the board meeting. So you had them, all right?
We have 2 pages of information.
Okay. But you just said which are. I said the recommendations. You said which are, and I said you received them. You received them.
But there's no details, there's no specifics.
The
I don't
detail
get-
comes from the committee that we set forth and instructed Dr. Skalka to put together. That committee was to come back to us with a recommendation.
But we
which they
don't
did.
have any information. We're basically just trusting that this is going to magically just work out, and then 2 years down the line, it's going to change again.
We're
Well,
trusting,
again,
Which I can
we're
almost
trusting,
you can't guarantee
I
that.
can almost
And-
guarantee.
And given all that you've just thrown out here and hoping something sticks, you can't throw that out here as well.
we as a board are
You
trusting
have-
the committee that the 8-person committee, 9-person committee that served to give us a look at the information and to give us a direction. That's what we had the committee for.
Why do we have to rush on this information? Why do we-
Rush, we've been doing it.
This is not a rush,
It is a rush.
by any means.
We have had this information, the 2 pages we had for a week. We have no other information, we have no details. That's a rush,
Well,
and I would like to know why.
you can't,
Was he
kudos to
offered?
you. Kudos to you in that you made an appointment with me this past Wednesday and honored that appointment. And we sat down and we talked and we went through and you asked many of these questions. And I provided you much of that information and many of those answers. And, you spoke about these transportation issues. And I shared with you very clearly that transportation, we don't know specifically, and that's where, again, because I can't answer to the dollar figure, right? We don't know because from year to year, right, seniors graduate, new kindergartners come on. Bus routes are changed annually. They're reworked every single August, right? And so this idea that that I can give you an exact dollar figure, which is what you're looking for. If I even gave you a range, that wouldn't be sufficient because it wouldn't be exact. But all of these things are redone every single summer, all right? And I will again clearly state to folks, all right, that we do not have kids on buses for more than an hour. We don't set up routes that last for more than an hour. Now, if there's bad weather and they go a little slower, can it be more than an hour? Sure, all right?
You can be as patronizing as you want, but the fact of the matter is, you said at the last meeting, there were reams worth of information to go through.
Yep.
You gave me 10 pages.
Oh.
You gave me 10 pages.
Okay.
So, that's 12 pages of information that we're making on this decision. And again, it's violating the public trust, and we're expecting people to.
We have talked about making the secondary and elementary boundaries, putting them back to the same for over 2 years now. This is just the fruition of that discussion, starting from the building closure committee when we started with it, to move the two boundaries back to the same lines.
Which
And
that
that's
committee,
exactly what this is accomplishing.
which that committee came to the conclusion that this was not a good idea and would cost more money. So did Dr. Skalka, and so did you, President Bewer. So
The school closure committee involved moving an entire school's worth of students. And in that scenario, we ended up with additional teaching sections. As it states now, this is a cost-neutral proposal with respect to teaching sections because of the grandfathering of students with siblings currently at the middle school and high school. Without that, then I grant you, then indeed we'd look at additional teaching sections. That caveat, to keep families together, also has the financial benefit of making this cost neutral at this time.
until Eddy Elementary or whatever elementary we're gonna close within the next year. Also,
Again, please don't say within the next year,
Or
because at
within-
no time has there been a timeline put on it after the board made their decision back in November. Yes, they left it open, but at no time did they put a time limit on that. And again, I can't let you say within the next year and let that go out on Channel 6 or any other ways to be repeated over and over again.
after the May ballot proposal, I think it's safe to say.
You know,
I don't
that's,
want the
that's why we
public-
left it open, because we can't say we're never gonna close the school again, because you would run with that. We don't know what's gonna happen in a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. What happens if we lose 400 kids? We don't know what's gonna happen. We don't have that little crystal ball. I mean, we're trying to do the best that we can. Some of us stay up at night worrying and hoping we're making the right decision for these kids to come in here and have you throw us all under the bus.
I mean,
Well, I
we,
sleep
This is
well at night because
ridiculous.
I
We're
vote
trying
the
to
right
do
way,
what's
so-
best, and you're just destroying it.
we are predicting 75 students less next year. We're predicting a decline the final year, the next year. So student enrollment is declining because we're graduating more seniors than we're bringing in kindergartens. That's been the fact for the last
We
6 or
just
7
make the
years, and it's
motion and-
continuing
and
through.
My
And
question
that's not
is-
just East China, that's St. Clair County.
Right, and I say why not wait and see what happens so that we make the right decision.
Because we have a fund balance that we're gonna run out of.
But
We're gonna
this is-
run out of
This
money.
is going to increase our budget. This is gonna increase expenditures.
We don't
And
know
just,
what-
There's not
We're
evidence
just
to
told
that
you that
effect.
it's not
Yes,
increasing
we
expenditures.
do know
Please
that.
do not yell out.
We are not
This is already
increasing
turning
budget. It's
into
a
a free-for-all,
neutral,
and I've
this
had enough.
decision tonight is a neutral funding issue.
No, it's not.
Well,
The transportation issue will double the transportation budget in that area.
The
If we provide transportation with the grandfathered area, the students that are grandfathered, if we provide transportation for them, and then also the new students that will be going to the Marine City end,
well,
that's,
see, again, you speak to that from a position of understandable that you could come to that conclusion, but also our bus runs, drivers are paid, a limit. So if they have a 2-hour time limit, bus runs the time that they actually drive If they're only driving, if their run is a half-hour run, we can add time to their run and not add time to our costs.
But we don't know that, and that's the point that I'm making, that we need to know those
Okay.
things before making a final
Well, we
decision.
don't know that coming after kindergarten roundup every single year.
Right.
The transportation
change.
guide, bus routes are
There'll be-
always
there'll-
changed every
there'll-
year.
There'll be roads that we've never had to go down before, or we haven't gone down the last few years, but now has a kindergartner on it. Those are the things we have to work through after kindergarten roundup, and we actually work through all the way through the first 2 weeks of the school year, because we find out that kids who routinely have ridden the bus before, maybe now have gotten a car, or maybe are riding with someone else, and we alter those we change those routes.
But we can't even get a ballpark figure
Okay.
for this decision.
And we never will be able to.
Yes, we
All right.
I just want to make a real quick comment, because you put something out there and I don't want it to run rampant, but it was mentioned something about depending on the millage in May will depend on whether we close the school or not.
That's not true.
That's not true. That is not true. My motion, when I said that we didn't want to close Eddy Elementary, it had nothing to do, I do not want to hold taxpayers, of which I am one,
So am I.
we all are, hostage
Most
in
of us.
saying, if you don't vote for the millage, we're closing a school. What good is that for kids? Alan, we are all here for kids. 3 of us have lived in that pocket. I had kids that went to Pine River that had to make a decision. Are we going to go to St. Clair? Are we going to go to Marine City? I lived it, as did others. You lived in that pocket as a student,
correct.
not as a parent,
That's correct.
but as a student.
That's correct.
So this discussion has been going on for years and years and years. And I had a student, my son, went to 3 schools in 3 years because I thought he was going to be at Pine River for 2 years, and that's the year that they decided to make a junior high a middle school. So I felt terrible as a parent, but they adjusted. But I am getting tired of you throwing every single one of us under the bus, and this being the laughing stock of every taxpayer in East China, because all of us are up here, or most
Okay.
of us, trying to do what's best, number one, for kids. And we do a lot of homework before we come, and I've stated that before. When we come to a meeting, I do not want the people out here thinking, oh yeah, well, we came to the meeting, we haven't looked at anything. Hours and hours and hours. Yes, we have, Alan, maybe you have.
Okay, hold. Calm down. We don't need a yelling match up here.
Well, I'm tired of being accused of things that we are not.
Understand?
I am sorry,
Nope, no apologies.
Motion on the table.
but I
There's-
do
Yeah,
have a
there's a
motion on the table.
Can we do it?
You can call for a vote.
Yep.
You can call for a
Oh,
vote.
I, it's called for the question.
I would like to just really quickly address, because it keeps coming up, why now, right? And I know part of the discussion within the committee was, first of all, you do it now with the secondary grandfathering, and then you look at the fact that we said school of choice will still continue. You know that some of these students in the elementary level of school of choice, it'll take a number of years before the effects take place. You know what I mean? As far as by the time everyone's grandfathered, school of choice, it'll be higher at the beginning than it will eventually be. And so it really will take some time for, for the full effects, and to know, once this goes through, how many school of choice requests are we going to get immediately? Probably quite a few. And that's part of this, and we understand that, and that's why that was part of our conversation, understanding that we're going to get those school of choice requests. By doing it now, when it's not a, hey, we're closing the school next year, and there is no choice. In the situation right now, we have, there is choice still, and that is part of what we talked about. So just part of the answer to the question of why now, I guess.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
This is just something in addition to what Mr. Distorat just said.
Yes.
I agree with that, unless we close a school. Then that kind of eliminates the choice. I mean, at least the math that I look at, so.
I still agree with the committee's findings that putting the boundaries back so that they match between the elementary and secondary boundaries are the same. It was the right decision to make. We have a motion on the table.
Was it seconded?
It was
Yes.
seconded.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
All those in
I
favor,
request a roll call vote, please.
roll call vote. Mrs. Murphy,
Yes.
Mrs. Frank,
Yes.
Mrs. Bebut,
Yes.
Mr. Kennigbauer,
Yes.
Jim Bewer, yes. Mr. Richley,
No.
Mr. Distelrath.
Yes.
Motion carried, 6-1, Mr. Richley descending. With that, we stand adjourned.